Hi, I'm Eric Burkholder here with Jordan Bradford, Senior Advisor at Burkholder Wealth Management. And today we're going to create a video to talk about the fiduciary standard. It's a word that you may or may not have heard of, but it's thrown around a lot, at least in our industry. And it's an important word, and the fiduciary standard is a very important standard to work by, in our opinion. So,
Absolutely.
Jordan should have this fresh on his mind after passing the CFP. So tell us what is a fiduciary standard, and then what does that entail, and how does that affect clients?
Yeah, the fiduciary standard, and you boil it down to its simplest terms, it's just that the standard is that anyone who's operating as a fiduciary or someone who's managing your wealth, any version of money, even property, is operating on your behalf and in your best interest. And that's the real key aspect of it, is that a fiduciary is acting in your best interest. And if someone is giving you advice, I think it's important to ask, whose best interest is this really under? And you can know for sure that if you're working with a CFP, you're going to get the fiduciary standard from every CFP because we're required to do so in order to keep our status as certified financial planners. If you're just working with someone who calls himself a financial advisor or a financial planner but doesn't have any specific designations, I think it's a really important question to ask them
Mm-hmm.
is, are you a fiduciary?
Right.
Are you required to act in my best interest?
Right. And a lot of, I think, clients out there just assume that every advisor
Mm-hmm.
is required to act that way, much like a doctor or an attorney would be. But as you just mentioned, in this industry, there's several different standards that advisors operate under, and
Yes.
some are lower than others.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, if you work with an advisor at a broker dealer, or even an insurance firm, or someone that is, quote, a hybrid model,
Mm-hmm.
they will not always be acting as fiduciary.
Right.
And one of the best examples I've seen given for why that's important, because a lot of people say, well, the standard doesn't matter. Like, you need to work with someone who's ethical and honest,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. And that there's some truth to that, but
Right.
the example I've always heard is if you go, to the butcher to get advice on what to eat for dinner. Now, he can probably give you some great advice on meat, right?
Yeah.
And he's being ethical and honest,
Mm-hmm.
but he is not held to a standard of, he's probably not going to recommend a salad, right? Like, and that may be what's actually best for you.
Right.
And that's really, what we're talking about here is, there are a lot of different financial products, a lot of different ways to give
Mm-hmm.
advice, and so you want the advisor to be held to that highest standard.
Yeah. I think it's a difference between getting good advice and getting the best advice.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people can give good advice. A lot of people are the armchair quarterback, right, or the backseat driver, and it's really easy to give some good advice. But you want someone in your corner who is required to give the best advice for you that's going to be in your best interest. And there's a couple of basic standards that we have along the fiduciary duty to keep us in check for that. And the first is the duty of loyalty. The second is duty of care, and the third is the duty to follow client instructions. And they're pretty straightforward, but the duty of loyalty is just that we are loyal to our clients. What is in your best interest is what we are required to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to always put your interests ahead of ours. If there's ever a material conflict of interest, our job is to disclose that to you and manage it in a way that you feel really comfortable that we're still putting your interests first.
Right.
That's a big deal, and that's that duty of loyalty. And the duty of care is that we're expected to act with skill and prudence and to take into account your entire financial picture.
Right.
And I think that's another easy one to notice. If you go and meet with a financial advisor for the very first time, and right away they're giving you some really what you seem to think is great advice, like, oh, they've told me to change up all these things that I've done. If they've only met with you one time, there's a good chance that they're probably not acting as a fiduciary if they're giving you this really big, broad advice after just meeting you once.
Mm-hmm.
Because to really act with the proper amount of care, we have to really get to know our clients well.
Right.
We can't just, take a little piece of information here or there and say, well, obviously you need to do X, because we need to look at everything. We need to look under the hood and see what else might be leaking before we start giving some, advice or telling you to start changing up your financial plan.
Right.
And the last one is that, we have a duty to follow your instructions, and, anything that's within the law, it's our job to do what you want us to do. We work for you. And if you have an advisor that isn't following your instructions, I mean, to me, that's a huge red flag. Is even if your advisor disagrees with something that you're doing, even if your advisor says, hey, I wouldn't take this money out of this account, I would take it out of a different account, or I wouldn't even take a distribution right now. If they refuse to follow your instructions in some way, that's not a great sign. That tells me that there may be something else going on. There's probably not a whole lot of trust in that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's our job to do what you want us to do, even if we don't think it's in your best interest. We'll always tell you that, and that's why you work with a professional.
Yeah. It's it may seem like small differences here, but they really make the world for your outcome as a client and your long-term goals. It's the difference between selling products and being an advisor.
Right.
And every time a large broker dealer has faced a class action suit where people say you gave us advice that wasn't the best, they will tell the prospect and clients that we're acting in your best interest. But you can look it up, these cases in front of the court, they say, no, we are not fiduciaries. We cannot be held liable for that advice. And that's concerning.
Yeah.
You want the responsibility to fall on your advisor's shoulders.
Right.
It's your life savings on the table. So it's very important.
You want an advisor who's not only willing to tell you this in person when no one else is around, tell you that they're a fiduciary, but also put it on their website, make it known to the public that they are a fiduciary. Because if they're not willing to do that, then I'd be a little concerned that maybe they're not truly a fiduciary and they're just telling you what you want, what they think you want to hear in order to close a sale or to earn some business. And the reality is that in this industry, it's all about trust. And you have to find somebody that does what they say they're going to do, because that's the foundation of having a trusted relationship with a financial advisor, is someone that is going to do what they say they're going to do and is ultimately putting what they're saying out in public too, so that the world can see that as well.
Yeah. And so if you're out there and you're wondering, because I think a lot of times people don't know for sure if their advisor is fiduciary, it's very easy, simple question. Are you a fiduciary? Or even in more simple terms, are you required to act in my best interest at all times? And it should be a pretty straightforward answer. And if it's not, that might be a reason to look a little further and investigate the setup that you currently have.
Yeah, I think anything other than yes to that question would concern me as a consumer. Just that, that seems like a pretty straightforward question. If you're over explaining it, maybe there's something else I need to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously here we act as a fiduciary in every aspect, all of our interactions with clients, and any advisor, any person here is acting in our client's best interest. So it's something we proudly, put a stake of, what our firm stands for. So that's a quick little tutorial on the fiduciary standard. Big word, but at the end of the day, it just means do what's in the best interest of the client. So as always, if there's any other questions about the fiduciary standard or anything else, we are here to answer them. And we will see you on the next video.